And that would make them not only millionaires but billionaires.
Because I really believe that stock is wealth creation.
Probably you're the only one who has literally made that 10 crore mark.
Find a problem, create a solution.
It would be a fundamental shift in one's life.
Having our net worth as 1 crore.
This 1 crore and 10 crore.
The magic starts happening once you have made your base as the 100,000.
You don't want to do a distress sale as well.
Yeah, I can speak for myself. When I started working,
And उनकी अगर सैलरी की बात करें, that was even less than 50,000 rupees. This is the harsh reality.
Real estate is a myth in India that it grows really well.
I'll ask Amit.
And that would deliver on any amount, any zeros you want to add on.
Because of that leverage,
Make money work for you.
Enter into that millionaire club.
Investing in alternative assets.
Bonds, metals, some risky investments, and some in equity.
50 years stay invested.
Welcome back. So, in our previous conversation, we talked about how to make first 1 crore, right? In this conversation, I want to go beyond that and talk about how can we make 10 crores. Let's make a jump. Let's go from 1 crore to 10 crore. And before we start the conversation, I want to know from Ajay. Ajay, what do you think? Like, will it change our lifestyle at all? If somebody has 1 crore as net worth, and if they are shooting for 10 crores, do you think it changes their lifestyle in any way?
I think for sure, Viraj. What I feel is this 1 crore and 10 crore, it's not just mathematical. It would be a fundamental shift in one's life, you know. अगर मेरे लिए होता है तो मेरे लिए तो ये बहुत ही fundamental, I would say कि quantum shift है. Because achieving 1 crore is a monumental success, and इंडिया में तो ये बहुत बड़ी चीज़ है और हर कोई करोड़पति टैग के पीछे भाग रहा है. But at the same time, 10 crore, it's a different dimension, and if I ask about me, you know, I will actually gain the true financial freedom, you know, if I reach that mark one day. So I think after you reach that mark and live your lifestyle purely off the income which your investment generates from that 10 crore mark. So let's say, you know, I have 10 crores today, and if I just take the basic example कि 8% return आ रहा है मेरे fixed deposit पे, so just imagine 80 lakhs per annum money which is being generated by just net worth. So this is just purely for, you know, example purposes. And उससे बड़ी चीज which I feel is I would get the freedom to choose. And when I say freedom to choose means I no longer have to work for paychecks.
I said. So you're saying that it will not just change your life, but it will enable you to change others' life as well. You can work for the cause that is close to your heart. That's very nicely said.
Yeah.
Amit, so in our previous conversations, we talked about how to make 1 crore, right? And you made really good points about invest in yourselves, ride the wave. You know, that ride the wave really stuck with me. And, you know, it was such a good point. You also said that be very frugal about the money, right? Don't leave money on table. Make sure that you are saving on tax. Do you think doing all those things will take you from 1 crore to 10 crore? Will, you know, doing those things, just continue doing them, is it enough to reach to the 10 crore mark?
Very interesting question, Viraj. Thank you for asking. And let's understand the basic psychology here, right? So we're not only talking about adding few zeros to your net worth, right? Which was pretty good explained by Ansh in the last session. It's also about the mental change, right? Which Ajay just mentioned, right? You have already started some of the basic discipline in your money management, right? That's how you got up to 100K. That's how you got up to 1 crore, right? And if you have to continue the same journey, these are the basic steps you have to continue. Obviously, there would be few add-ons you have to think about because you need to add a couple of more zeros into it. But let me tell you one thing, and which is very important, that the magic starts happening once you have made your base as the 100,000. I'll keep referring to 100,000 or 1 crore as we say, but let's, for the simplicity, if we say 100,000 GBP, roughly, which would make up to a million, what we're trying to translate, right? So I would say yes. You know, every now and then we keep on saying it's $1 million idea, right? So when I say ride a wave, it does translate to $1 million idea, right? So you come up with an idea, or you figure out something which is gonna be interesting in the next 10 years, and you just ride that wave. So yes, absolutely. So the couple of points what I mentioned last time was ride the wave. Second was, which I always like, is find a problem, create a solution, and that would deliver on any amount, any zeros you want to add on to it, right? So obviously they would be there, but let's think about, not everybody could go through those two things, right? There would be few people who would really understand the wave, what is the wave, and second is they'll try and create something called as a fintech or any kind of a solution based industry, and that would make them not only millionaires but billionaires, right? But let's try and focus into if a normal person, right, similar to us, who has got a job but he's very well into financial discipline, how he can move from 1 crore to 10 crore, right? And this is where I think we have to have this journey split out into few steps, right? First thing is that my personal advice is, let's find a financial advisor, right? And that always helps, because you cannot be expert of everything, but you could always gain those expertise. You could always seek those expertise from different people, and you should always do that, right? Because they'll be the one who could take you along in that journey. Second is, you need to understand what is the time frame, right? Obviously there was a time frame required for you to move from $1 to $100,000, right? Now you need to think about what is the time frame. And when I talk about time frame, you need to understand, see, there are riskier bets you can take, right, to go up to $1 million, or there could be a safer bets or realistic bets which will take you. And that's where time frame comes to your mind, right? You have to be very apt about what is the time frame you're looking for. Is it 5 years you want to make it, 10 years, or being realistic, somewhere between 10 to 15 years is when you will make it? Or you're looking for something retirement, which is more of a safer bet. Yes, by the time I retire, I'll have $1 million in my net worth, right? And that helps you decide what is your risk appetite, right? So once you combine these 3-4 steps, you come up with a portfolio, right? A portfolio of net worth, right? And this is when you can diversify your portfolio into different asset classes or different instruments which would help you. And when I say asset classes, it could be real estate, it could be your stock driven portfolios, it could be as safe as mutual funds or ETFs. And we can talk about this in detail, but going back to your original question, yes, these things would definitely continue. But even if you do not find on these two, there is a consistent, disciplined way. If you continue following that path by doing these 3 to 4 steps, you could always enter into that millionaire club. And trust me, it is a proven funda that your discipline would take you there. So I would say yes.
Okay, cool. Oh, great. Thanks, Amit, for the answer. I agree. What we discussed in previous conversation is foundational, right? उससे तो हम लोग कहीं ऊपर नीचे नहीं जा सकते. That's really needed for even 1 crore, so definitely needed for 10 crores. In my experience, I also feel that a person who is a salaried employee, right? For them, it's really important to choose the right company. There can be 2 companies giving you the same compensation, but if one of them is not a growing company and if the other one is a growing company, I think it's worth taking that bet. You should also look into if company is allowing you to grow with the company. What it means is it giving you enough stake in the company in terms of employee options or restricted stock units? Because I really believe that stock is wealth creation, right? Salary, you can survive, you can save a little bit. Maybe going to 1 crore by saving from your salary is easier, but going to 10 crores by just saving from your salary, I think it's much harder. And for that, you need to make some right choices early in your career. I think that helps a lot. And I've seen people, saying कि यार क्या फर्क पड़ता है मेरे को अगर कंपनी A same pay दे रहा है, I'll use that pay and buy stocks of company B, which I think is a growing company. But that rarely happens, जो stocks मिलते हैं जो बैंक में और brokerage account में पड़े रहते हैं, that's different. You don't usually touch them, and it just grows if the company is growing. Ansh, let me come back to you now. So we spoke about, as a salaried employee, what you can do. You have to continue doing foundational things as we discussed in our previous conversations. What else can we do to reach to the 10 crore mark?
Yeah, I think this is where making money work for you really comes alive, right? Like if you're working, let's say in an organization, that's your active income, whether you're doing business or whether you are working at a job. That's primarily you're trading your time for money. So you can go to an extent, and like you said, you can make some really good choices of working in a company that's offering you better ESOPs, and it's a growing company. Maybe you ride the wave of tech stocks or AI companies, and all of that is a really good decision. But you can't really stretch that to an extent where you need to also start thinking about, can I find a way where my money is growing while I'm sleeping? Is there a way to kind of ride that? And if you can arrange and do some investments in such a way, and I can give you a couple of examples, right? So let's say through your active income, you make some savings. Now, instead of them sitting in a bank account, which may yield 0 to 0.5% in the West, maybe 2 to 3% in India, can we do something better, which at least beats inflation, right? And this is where all the investment kind of ideas come across. Now, it's very important to kind of understand the power of compounding. A lot of people miss the concept, because what also happens is some people make the right decisions of kind of investing in, let's say, mutual funds. Mutual Fund Sahi Hai is a fantastic campaign, which India is been kind of making sure that everybody is investing in mutual funds.
That's true.
Which is great, but we also need to go beyond that. Like, what about ETFs, which is almost the same as mutual funds, but gives you a bit more flexibility. Most people don't even know about exchange traded funds. In the West, most people just do ETFs. An ETF is simply like, you're buying it's very similar to an index mutual fund. So I think the competitor for ETF is like an index mutual fund. But ETFs even offer you far less rates in terms of the pricing. It is 0.04%. It's almost negligible. So your money, let's say if you invest in a NASDAQ ETF or an S&P 500, which is basically primarily investing in the US stock market, or if you consider, let's say, India, which is if you use a Nifty 50, or you could also go for the next 50, which is the 51st to the 100 company in India. So all of these ETFs can give you better returns, at least 12%. That's been the norm for the past few years and decades. But if you start kind of exposing yourself, and the formula that I use is, and I don't know if I mentioned it earlier, is the 100 minus age formula. Mm-hmm. So let's say if I'm 35, let's say, so in my mind, if you leave real estate aside, and real estate is such an expensive purchase that it kind of skews your calculations. So leave the real estate aside for now. If I am 35, it's 65% should go into equity. If I'm 25, then 75% should go into equity, or and then slowly when you age up, let's say when you become 60 to 70, you start choosing more kind of safer risk-free assets like debt funds, gold. So you still have gold and debt funds and other kind of instruments even when you're 25, but the percentages change. So it's 75-25. When you're 70 years old, it should be 30% equity, 70% in like safer assets, because at that time you're more focused on protecting instead of growing your assets, and you lose the time benefit when you're 70. When you're 25, you have that next 30 years of time.
Thanks, Ansh. That's really cool. That's a really good saying, like make money work for you. And it is so obvious, but many people miss it. And in India, people say, oh, सिर्फ 12% return आया. And that's something that people dream of in West, right? Like 12% return is a big deal. और inflation उतना India में रहा नहीं है. अभी, I was looking at corporate bonds, and they are offering 12% for like next 15 years. And it's such a great opportunity, and people shouldn't just miss it. And that begs the question about looking at how this money will compound over certain years, right? And if you can show us like what it means to have this kind of return, and if you keep on investing, how your money grows. If you can show it to us, it will be really useful.
Absolutely, Viraj. I think this is where the magic of compounding comes, and I know time is a key factor here. But let's look at smaller numbers. Just let's look at something like 25,000 monthly. I think maybe that's a difficult thing for a 21, 22-year-old at the beginning, maybe in the first few years, but it gradually becomes quite easy, especially in your 30s and 40s, saving 25,000 a month. And this is not a step up SIP or anything. This is just 25,000 flat monthly. And you're doing that as simple as that, and you become a millionaire in 30 years. Like, imagine the power of compounding, that you are getting 8.8 crores. Only 2% of India's population have that number as net worth. And we have explained what net worth is, right? Assets minus liabilities. You literally are a millionaire just by saving 25,000 a month.
Yeah, thoda samjha to what are we looking at right now?
So if you look at the amount you want to invest, it's 25,000. You are investing it for 30 years. And we are keeping it at 12%, which is the standard return that something like a Nifty 50 product has given. We're not even doing any risky bets here. I'm not talking about investing in startups or small caps. I'm talking about large caps, top 50 companies of India, which may change over time. That's why you can invest in the whole index. Yeah. And even a simple thing like that, and investing it consistently, let's say every month 25,000, is going to make you a millionaire. So the problem here is, I think it's more of a mindset issue and more of a discipline issue. So most people in India, what happens is they start their SIPs, but either they end it or they discontinue it, or they get too excited at the portfolio and then just cash out everything and then do a massive purchase. Let's say you buy a really fancy car or something like that, and that's where because it's a depreciating asset, you lose all your kind of investments, and then you miss out the time advantage and the continuous compounding power of that 25,000 small amount. And I think what people should do is make this fully automatic. So 25,000 a month, make it fully automatic. You're going to be a millionaire guaranteed without anybody, touching this. If you want to do whatever purchases you want to do, you could simply do it on top of it. So let's say instead of touching this, use your other savings, right? Because when you're in 30s and 40s, you might be saving definitely a bit more than 25,000. That's where you want to use your money for your wants. I know the needs would be taken care of through your other expenses, but you should be having enough from your active income to kind of take care of your wants. Don't touch this. Whatever investments you are doing, think two things. One is long term. Second is it needs to be automated, and third thing is it should be boring. Like if it meets all three criterias, you are bound for success, because that's the mathematical power and that's the power of compounding, right? Another simple example: if you don't do anything, and let's switch over to the other example of let's say if somebody wants to not do anything, but let's say as a parent, I want to gift $10,000 to my son or daughter. $10,000 roughly 8.8 lakhs, right? So let's say if I in 8.8 lakhs right now, let's say I keep it as my college fund for my child, or let's say any parent has that money and wants to just give it to the children as some sort of gift, right? And you can imagine that amount for education purposes and for any of that sort of, right? But let's say you don't do the education, you just use that money and kind of as a parent, let's say invest that on your son's or daughter's name, and don't do anything else. Nothing, no top-ups. Over the lifetime, he or she may earn a lot of active income. Forget about investing all of that stuff. Just by doing that and letting it sit there, let's look at the variables. So if you let it sit there for 50 years, it's gonna just give you at 12%, 33 crores. So at age 18, let's say if a child, if a parent kind of gives a child that gift, at 68, he or she would have 33 crores without any extra active income being invested. So this is where I think people lose out on the power of compounding. It was just an 8 lakh investment. So the total principal, the total amount you invested was 8.5. And out of the 33.2, 32 and a half lakhs is all our interest that you're earning from that money.
That's really crazy. इसमें हम लोग monthly कुछ भी add नहीं कर रहे हैं.
कुछ भी add नहीं कर रहे हैं, nothing at all. It is just one time investment.
I hope our viewers don't go to their parents saying कि क्या बचा है हमारे लिए दिखाओ अब. This is crazy numbers.
It's absolutely crazy, and most people are not able to have, like when my parents would retire, when we were retired, even having a 33 crores is going to be difficult for all of us, right? So if we would have started early, imagine somebody who's listening at age 18 or 15 or 20, even in 20s, if they start early, they are hitting tens and tens of crores just by letting just that one big time investment and not touching it. Because the real growth happens in the last 5-6 years, right? And if we don't touch it for X number of years, that's where this whole amount is gonna compound. Look at the third example, and this will just blow your mind, right? If you do the same 8.5 lakh kind of investment, which is $10,000 roughly, and you just do the 25,000 kind of monthly, which is so realistic, right? Like when you are growing, when you are riding your job and everything, you could easily save up 25,000. If you have a one-time investment and you have a 25,000 monthly investment, your total investment is literally just 1.5 CR throughout your life. Like in 50 years, you would just be investing 1.5, crores. But look at the return. 130 crores is the interest that you're earning.
That's very encouraging. That's very, very encouraging. And really, the graphs that we saw, it blows our mind. It's amazing. But it's important to know that you have to be patient. अगर हम लोग सोच रहे कि 10 करोड़ हमारे 6 महीने में हो जाएगा, then you'll keep on committing the mistake of taking money out from your savings and spending it on something. If you be patient, it is possible. As Ansh said, it's not such a big number. We can do it. And one thing that I'd like to call out is, and I've seen this in many Indian families, लोगों के पास brokerage account नहीं होता है. And because of that hurdle, they don't do what Ansh you just showed to us, right? So please go ahead and just open a brokerage account. अब तो इंडिया में free में open होता है. The brokerage fee is free. So there is really no reason for not doing it. And at the risk of sounding sexist, I know a lot of girls don't do it. They earn equal as what boys are earning, but they for some reason don't open the brokerage account. So please don't commit that mistake. Go ahead and open a brokerage account.
I have an interesting story to tell, Ansh, to your point, compounding magic. So the other day I was watching one interview. शायद आप लोगों ने सुना होगा नाम मनीष पाबराई करके एक इन्वेस्टर है. There is a very famous book called Dhandho Investor. So he was narrating one story, and the story goes like this. So when European expansionism was on peak, तो डच लोग जब मैनहट्टन गए, in 1620s की बात कर रहा था वो, तो they bought Manhattan from the Native Americans, Native Indians for $25. And somebody would say कि यार $25 तो आज कुछ भी नहीं है, right? That place holds, very big companies, it's a primest location on this earth, right? तो वो बंदे ने example दी this compounding की. So there's a very famous formula, I think everybody knows about that. 72 divided by X, X is your return percentage, okay? So let's say if you get 12%, like in Ansh's example, your money will double in 6 years. So 72 divided by 12, 6 years. So उस बंदे ने example दी that let's say in 1620 Dutch लोगों ने $25 का खरीदा नेटिव इंडियन से, अगर उनके पास ये ऑप्शन होती, मान लो, एंड लेट्स जस्ट टेक 7% एग्जाम्पल. So to make our calculation simple, okay, so divide 72 by 7 and let's make it 10%, okay, points में नहीं जाते हैं. So your money gets doubled roughly 10 years, right? So $25 will become $50 in 1630, okay. एंड अगर हम 100 ईयर्स की बात करें तो 2⁻10 हो गया, राइट? मतलब 100 ईयर्स में 1000 टाइम्स हो गया, मतलब सिंपल की बात करें तो थिंक अबाउट इट, 1620 में $25 का उन्होंने मैनहट्टन लिया, 1720 में वो बन गया 25,000 का, 100 साल में 25,000 गुना बढ़ गया, तो 25,000 का हो गया. अब 1820 में वो 1000 गुना बढ़ गया, तो वो बन गया $25 मिलियन का, राइट? कंपाउंडिंग चल रहा है 7%. 1920 में वो बन गया 25 बिलियन का. एंड 2020 अगर अब की बात करें तो वो 25 ट्रिलियन बन गया. आई एम श्योर कि मतलब पूरे यूएस के जो जीडीपी है वो अराउंड 100 ट्रिलियन के अराउंड कुछ तो है, मतलब नंबर, आई डोंट नो द एग्जैक्ट नंबर. दिस इज द पावर ऑफ कंपाउंडिंग. हम बोल रहे हैं कि एक मैनहट्टन $25 का उन लोगों ने लिया और वो बहुत सस्ता था, बट थिंक अबाउट इफ दे वुड हैव डन 7% इन्वेस्टमेंट एट दैट टाइम, $25 कैन बिकम $25 ट्रिलियन टुडे. तो दिस इज द पावर ऑफ कंपाउंडिंग. मुझे ये स्टोरी बहुत अच्छी लगी.
ब्यूटीफुल स्टोरी अजय. आई थिंक इट्स यही वो आई थिंक मैजिक है. विद आई थिंक इन योर एग्जांपल द मैजिक वाज टाइम, राइट? Even a small amount, and also the examples that we gave were very realistic examples. The magic is time. But इसमें जो एक वेरिएबल है ना, जो बहुत ही इंटरेस्टिंग वेरिएबल है, is all about patience and not touching it, right? So I think we should find that amount that you don't really care and you just let it be. Whatever that amount is. For me, if it's 25,000, for somebody else it could be 50,000, and then you can multiply the numbers. It'll probably be more than double whatever we saw on the numbers, because those extra would also get compounded. So whatever is your safe amount that you don't need, use that for automated and like through a kind of a brokerage. It doesn't even have to be brokerage account, right? Where Viraj mentioned it's such an important thing for all of us to open brokerage, but you can also do it without opening it. Like you can start off with a mutual fund, as simple as that, right? And do something like an index mutual fund, ideally brokerage, because then it can be visible through the NSDL and the CSDL kind of logins, and then it just consolidates all your financial investments. So it just makes sense to have like a brokerage account. But let's just get started. Let's listen to different people, get started, and you can also choose your right balance. Right? You don't have that 25%, the 25,000 that we mentioned. It doesn't have to go in one product. You can split it across 3 products depending on your risk appetite. So I think the key is to find your current position, have a goal in mind, and just find that number and make these these decisions as fast and as soon as you can, as early as you can in your young age. Because the compounding can only help. It doesn't help when you start at 55. It helps when you start in your 20s or maybe in your teens. I think that's where it just gives you that extra power.
Ansh, we are talking about being very patient when we talk about compounding and just let it grow, right? What are the other active investments or businesses that we can invest in? It can be something as conventional as owning a franchisees or investing into private equity, where you are taking a bigger risk, but the reward is equally bigger, right? How do you weigh this? Like, if I'm somebody, I've made 1 crore, how do I decide what kind of risk should I take?
So I think the first thing is our internal kind of emotional quotient, right? I think EQ is more important in investment than IQ. It's not about finding the right product, not all of the or different options. It's more about what do you feel when you get that that extra income when you reach 1 crore, 10 crores. What do you feel? Are you like super exhilarated, and then do you want to like splurge, or do you want to consistently grow on it and build a portfolio and then use portions of it as per your life and requirements? So there's so many avenues. Let's go with the simplest first, and then we'll go to the most complex, right? So the simplest is to invest in equities, especially now with all the brokerage accounts being online through apps. You could choose your favorite brokerage account and kind of start investing. That's one. The second is you could also use some of these other platforms to directly buy mutual funds. So that's another option. But all of this essentially goes in stocks, right? So you can use the 100 minus age formula to find your proportion. And then the simplest way to do this is you should have an allocation in large caps, mid caps, and small caps. Now, typically, the index is all large caps. So if you're doing index, it's the best way of investing because it's the lowest cost. So it does make sense to invest in index. Forget about large caps because automatically large caps are covered. And ideally, you should just have a mid cap fund and a small cap fund, and you're sorted. So those three, and that's about it. Now, when you're done with that, the next thing you want to do is, and we have spoken about preservation. We've spoken about like the emergency funds and all that, because that was a journey from to 1 crore. So you've already taken care of emergency fund. You've taken care of some FDs and all, which can be liquidated in case of a need. So you've taken care of all of that, and then you're jumping this equity game. So it's very important to do those initial steps before you jump on the equities. Once all of that thing is taken care of, you've taken care of equities. The next possible thing is how about investing in alternative assets. Now some people in the West invest in metals, commodities like gold and silver. Gold is quite popular in India and is always brings a cheer to the households, and is something the parents would obviously be very happy if you buy it. So it could be in different forms. You don't have to buy physical gold, because if you buy physical gold, I would rather say it's super complicated to maintain it, store it. There's chances of theft. So I would say avoid that. Buy SGBs or gold in like paper format. But don't buy digital gold, because a lot of these companies offer digital gold. They have a lot of like charges and all. What you should do is buy gold either in SGBs, or you should buy it in terms of a mutual fund, which is a gold fund, which offers you the best rates and all that. So it's you could ride the gold wave. Also, gold has become very important, especially with the geopolitical risk that we are seeing in recent times. The trust on the US dollar is eroding. People who are following the news can clearly see that central banks have started buying a lot of gold. So when RBI and China's Reserve Bank, when they start buying gold के prices बहुत significantly move होते हैं, because players like you and I would buy, let's say, 10 grams to 100 grams of gold, right? But when a player like RBI buys gold, they buy in tons, not in half a kg or kg, right? And that's where price movements really happen. It seems like the BRICS is trying to set up its own currency and all that stuff, so they would probably use gold as a tool to kind of back their currency. So it looks like gold is poised for success, and you've already seen the price movement in gold already. It may go it may have a run up from here as well, who knows. But gold is one big thing we should look out for. But there's also companies like hum sab ne Shark Tank to dekha hi hai, where sharks kind of invest in different companies. The interesting thing about Shark Tank has made investment quite common in India, and they've understood what equity is, what debt is. पहले वही confusion होती थी इंडिया में कि ये equity होता क्या है and all that. So I think a lot of people now understand what that is. But जो next topic है, which is probably not for everybody is venture capital, which is like really right up there. Companies like Y Combinator in the West, especially in Silicon Valley, are like excellent, venture. There's a bunch of venture capitalists, like Naval Ravikant is one of them. Then you have a bunch of Y Combinator guys like Sam Altman, etc. So venture capitalists say, and then they started their own companies. So there's a lot of guys in the West, and now we have our own suite of venture capitalists. You would see all the Shark Tank judges and people like that in that category are now venture capitalists. Not everybody can do that, because I think there are 4 or 5 stages quickly in like 5 seconds. There's a pre-seed stage where it's very initial idea bus, and you're kind of developing prototypes. Then have the seed stage jahan pe like an angel investor to support product development. You're building the initial team and all. But the main thing is series A, B, and C. And A is, I think, the first significant round of kind of venture capital funding. And इसमें product market fit वगैरह, business plans वगैरह, and then generally ये money used होता है to scale operations. Series B is to further expand and kind of, like for instance, Zomato is so popular in India, and you might have seen the pre-seed to like IPO kind of the whole game, right? For a company like Zomato. So I think companies like this, finally after A, B, and C, they generally have, venture capitalists generally exit during an IPO. Some kind of investors may stick on with the company if they believe in it. But IPO is like that final kind of thing for these companies, and it kind of showcases that they have. Because when you do an IPO, you become a public company, and public company means a lot of trust needs to be there. So there's a lot of paperwork. Amit knows really well because he's been working in Citibank. So how much due diligence a bank does on a public company, it's really difficult to take a company to an IPO. If some companies are going as to become a public company, it needs a lot of checks and balances, and that's where some venture capitalists kind of, let's say, who's a 5% owner might sell 4%, and that 4% can then be, it can be diluted and then can be shared with the public at large, which can buy 0.001% of the company, and eventually you release the millions of share in the market. So I think that's like at a really, really high level, some of the initial stages, right from emergency fund to venture capital. Not everybody is made for venture capital. You need to do all the steps before you start kind of investing in these kind of startups, because these are absolutely risky bets. If it works, it goes from 1 to 100. If it doesn't work, you lose that 1. So it depends upon your risk appetite. Once you have made a significant amount of money in life, then maybe you could have 5%, 2 to 5% for venture capital. But until then, I would say the initial bits are those first 5-6 things that you need to focus on.
And just so that everybody knows, why is Ansh saying it is not for everybody? The reason is you can actually lose everything. So बाकी investments में आपके investment zero होना बहुत rare है. But if you are investing as a venture capitalist, investment zero होना is not uncommon. It's expected कि आपके पैसे zero होने वाले हैं. So that's why Ansh is saying that it's not for everybody, and you have to do everything else before you venture into venture capitalism. One more thing I would like to add is, venture capitalist sounds very sophisticated. You may think that बहुत सारे पैसे हो गए तो ही मैं कर पाऊंगा. ये ऐसा नहीं है. There are a lot of portals where you can buy private equity in these private companies at a very smaller amount. Again, it can become zero, but you don't need crores of rupees. You can start with a few lakhs. So watch out for those portals and see if there is anything that you really believe in, and see if you can afford investing in those companies.
And if I could make a point, right? Such a great points regard, the riskier assets, right? And I'm sure, most of our audience must have heard about cryptos as well, right? The story about crypto is in a different league. People have made millions and billions, but as similar to venture capital, it's one of those riskier assets. Just be careful, understand the market, crypto market. If you understand all the details, and if your risk appetite allows, then only you should explore those options. But it is one of those, again, a riskier asset, and I thought I should just mention that so that our audience is aware.
Crypto brings a really important point of intrinsic value of your investments, right? I believe crypto has no intrinsic value, so I stay away from them. But other investment avenues that all of us talked about, there is some intrinsic value, including gold. So be careful. You know learn about these things before you just blindly start investing.
This one other thing, Viraj and Amit, I intentionally did not talk about crypto is just because the regulators are not supportive of crypto in India. Some regulations are flipping in the West. The US is now, being very pro crypto. So you can see massive rallies in crypto, but one regulation change can suddenly change the tide. So it like you both said, we need to be extra careful. You need to know the trajectory. You need to understand the intrinsic value of what you're buying. And even in crypto, there are like thousands of coins. So which coin to choose? Are you sticking to Bitcoin and Ethereum, or are you going to other coins? So there's so many kind of variables. Unless you know about the subject, don't dive into it. That's our recommendation. There's other two things that I want to talk about are something that you should always stay away from. One is futures and options. A lot of people have lost lakhs and lakhs of rupees in India. It's documented evidence. SEBI always comes out with reports. Even companies like responsible brokerage firms like Zerodha come with reports like you're gonna lose money. They directly tell you when you're making that trade. 95% of people lose money in futures and options. So I think that's one thing people should avoid. I think it's the mindset of making some money overnight and growing as soon as possible. It needs to change. I think future and option is something which is thriving on this greed mindset. It doesn't work. It will not work 95% of the times. Will you be lucky once? Yes, but you'll probably not be lucky 95% of the time. So that's where you have to figure out why even play this game. The second thing is lotteries, and people invest a lot of time in creating teams in Dream 11 and other kind of apps. Now we have a regulation on it. There's additional tax on it. Recently, as part of GST rationalization, this has come under the sin category, which means it's 40% GST on making a team in Dream 11. Imagine 40% you're paying just as tax. How will you ever make money on it? Like, it's not possible. And some people think that you're being very strategic about choosing the players and all that, and that's how they sold it. But please stay away. It's rather better to just buy something like an FD than with guaranteed returns, or even an equity stock than playing in Dream 11. And we have showed you examples. 25,000, 10,000, 30,000 rupees can make your life. Why are you investing that similar amount in FNO and Dream 11? Just stick with it. We're trying to share all the right things, which most of us have done in life. I myself have done some FNO just to try about it and kind of understand the space. But I stopped it after doing it for a couple of months, and for the past 15 years I've just stuck to pure investments, the 7-8 things that we just spoke about. So I think these are the things people should avoid. Don't think money is going to grow overnight. It will grow, but it'll take decades. Just stick with it. Just make sure it's boring. Don't get too excited about it. Be patient. And then we're repeating it again and again. But it's so important to make it automated. Don't do it intentionally. Make sure it's happening through an automatic transaction. As soon as you get your salary or whatever your active income is through your business, the first thing that should go out before even the rent and other utility bills should be your investment amount, whatever you want to invest. That amount you choose as per your kind of own requirements and savings and the way you want your future to be. But that should be the first automatic kind of payment that should go away from your bank account and never touch it. And that's how you really see progress and really good money, down the road.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think अंश मेरा भी यही फंड है. I think from last 10 years, मेरा ये फंड है कि इन्वेस्टमेंट शुड बी बोरिंग. मैं कोई भी इंटरेस्टिंग इन्वेस्टमेंट में इन्वेस्ट ही नहीं करता हूँ. फ्यूचर एंड ऑप्शंस एग्जाम्पल सेम है, क्रिप्टो सेम है. जो इन्वेस्टमेंट एक दिन में 10% ऊपर जाती है, नेक्स्ट दिन -5 होती है, फिर नेक्स्ट डे फिर -5 होती है, फिर +3 होती है, +10 होती है, मुझे उसमें करना ही नहीं है. एंड आई थिंक नोबडी शुड डू दैट. ऐसे इन्वेस्टमेंट्स आपको कभी भी रिच नहीं बनाएंगे. दे विल मेक यू बैंकरप्ट वन डे. And like Ansh is saying, it should be boring enough, so just put your money, forget about it. And to be very honest, मेरे पास कोई ऐप नहीं है. I don't keep app in my phone because मुझे जाके डेली चेक नहीं करना है कितना अप हुआ नहीं हुआ. Maybe after 6 months, एक बार देखूंगा मैं क्या चल रहा है. But everything is automated. Every month अपने आप डिडक्ट होता है, अपने आप एवरेज आउट हो रहा है सब कुछ. मार्केट नीचे जा रहा है, ऊपर जा रहा है, डजंट मैटर, सब कुछ एवरेज आउट होने ही वाला है. तो दैट थिंग विल इवेंचुअली वर्क आउट फॉर यू. एंड या इंटरेस्टिंग और जो ये एड्रेनलिन रश देती है इन्वेस्टमेंट्स, उनको छोड़ो और चुपचाप इन्वेस्ट करो और भूल जाओ.
Ajay is on track to be a multi-millionaire for sure then.
But I started late,
and she's already, I would say, come on. Well, we should be saying we do have a multi-millionaire here sitting with us, and we take a pride on that.
Viraj, you have made, you're already a millionaire, and obviously you're on track to become, multi-millionaire, and hopefully one day a billionaire. What do you think about your own money, right? And I know you use the route of investing in your company through ESOPs. You have worked in, big tech companies, Google, Amazon, Salesforce. Amazing experience. It pays well. It gives you ESOPs. You grow with the company. How are you managing your money from the ESOPs? Are you diluting it to other companies so that your eggs are not in the same basket? What are you doing with your own money, and how are you growing further?
So honestly, when it all started, I was illiterate. There was no podcast as such to educate me about investing. So I didn't know what to do with my stocks. I just kept it as it is. And I had the intuition that these companies are growing companies, right? So there was no reason to sell the stocks, and I just kept it, and it just kept on growing, which, in a way I got lucky. But now I feel that the FANG company, the so-called FANG companies, are no longer growth companies. And that's why you can see that many companies have started giving dividends. That's a good indicator that they themselves don't consider themselves as a growth company. And now I have started thinking about what do I do with my stocks, right? And I'm trying to balance it similar to what you said, Ansh, like bonds, metals, some risky investments, and some in equity. So I've started that process of balancing it. It's a great journey so far. And that's why I've also started looking at corporate bonds in India. I'm really excited about it. Invest 1 crore in corporate bonds, and it gives you, like, I think Ajay touched upon it, right? It gives you 8 lakhs a year, right? With 1 crore. With 10 crores, it gives you 80 lakhs a year. So that's great. I'm really excited about it. I'm also focusing on liquidity. I want to make sure that whatever I invest in, I can take the money out whenever I want. And that's why I'm not buying a lot of real estate, because real estate is not liquid. No matter what people say, what people tell you, कि ये एरिया बहुत अच्छा है, आप बोलोगे तो कल घर बेच देंगे. It doesn't happen that way. So I'm being a little cautious about investing in real estate. If I want to have some part of my portfolio in real estate, I'm buying REITs, which is a great avenue to get some exposure to real estate in India without actually buying a real estate. And one lesson that I'm learning, and I'm trying to not to make the same mistake, is not to depend on others to control my investments. अभी तक ऐसा होता था कि I always have to call somebody saying, यार इसका लीज रिन्यू करना है, please go, please make sure कि घर ठीक है, just get it cleaned. I'm trying to avoid those things. I'm trying to get more control on my money so that I don't have to depend on somebody else's time if I want to liquidate my investments.
That's really well said, Viraj. I think it's a really good point. And I know we spoke about it earlier, but I think in this podcast we didn't touch the liquidity aspect of it like directly head on. And indirectly we mention all the stuff which are generally very liquid. And the reason why I love liquidity is because you stay in control. Like you said, right? When you really need the money for whatever reasons, whether it's a family emergency or you want to, upgrade your life, buy a house or whatever. Even for a real estate purchase, if your money is stuck in another real estate, you're stuck. So
Yeah.
it's important to have that liquidity, and all of these stuff that we spoke about, equities, corporate bonds, mutual funds, FDs, all of these things except for pension and EPF products, which are locked in for like 15 years or till retirement. Most of the funds are absolutely liquid and you can get your money in a few hours, maybe in a day, which is amazing, right? Because it lets you stay in control, it gives you flexibility, there is choice and there's freedom. And then ये property में यही होता है, अगर आपकी property है, if you want to buy, it's expensive, but if you want to sell, वो बिकता ही नहीं है जब तक आप price इतना ना गिराओ. And then इतना price जब तक गिराओगे, then it feels like, it's like a it's a distress sale or something like that. So you don't want to do a distress sale as well. So real estate, I would say, for your own house, go for it. If you want to, buy for your own space and for your comfort, feels good to have your own house. And real estate is a myth in India that it grows really well. The problem was in the 70s to the 2000s, there was no other avenues in India, and that's the reason why real estate grew massively. Most of our parents have made money in real estate, so it's there in their muscle memory. But real estate has actually grown only by 4% year on year, which doesn't even beat inflation, if you look at pure stats. The second thing is real estate is where you have some portion in white and some portion in black, especially in a developing and emerging market, which may work for somebody, which may not work for somebody. If you are working in a job, you really don't care about that black thing. If you have a business or something, that is one of the reasons why you buy real estate, so that you can park some of your others income, which is non-white. So I think this is where real estate becomes a bit tricky. Depending on your active income and your source of active income, you may make some choices, but real estate in general is absolutely not as liquid as people think. And it's hasn't grown as much as people assume that it's grown. It's become, 1 crore का flat है, अब 1 crore 20 lakh का हो गया है. But then people don't realize वो 2015 में 1 crore का लिया था, 2025 चल रहा है, so they're growing at 3%. 20 lakh का appreciation in 5-10 years is nothing. So it's that calculation that people don't do it.
Yeah. और ये भी है ना कि suppose if you have a house of 1 crore, right, and you need like 15 lakhs for whatever expense, you have to sell the whole house. But if it was in mutual fund, you can just withdraw 15 lakhs, and that makes more sense. Yeah, real estate, I feel is inflation adjusted, right? Like अगर मेरे पास घर है, आज से 20 साल के बाद भी वो घर रहने वाला है. So there is some value. But I think people shouldn't get overexposed to real estate investments. वो एक थोड़ा slippery slope हो जाता है.
है ना इंडिया में कि you get leverage, when you invest in real estate. तो builders लोग क्या कर रहे हैं ना कि you let's say book a flat for let's say 10 lakhs and you pay on the project development, which gives you leverage on whatever your investment is. वो कह रहा है कि वो तो 10 लाख let's say invest किया एंड 1 साल बाद उन्होंने 10 लाख उन्होंने और स्पेंड करना है, तो इवेंचुअली दे स्पेंड 20 lakhs. बट कल को जो अप्रिसिएशन होता है वो कंप्लीट लेट्स से फ्लैट 1 CR का था, तो अप्रिसिएशन 1 CR पे होता है. एंड इफ दैट 1 CR बिकम्स 120, तो उनका लिटरली पैसा डबल हो गया 2 साल में. आई थिंक बिकॉज ऑफ दैट लेवरेज क्या हो रहा है ना कि इंडिया में रियल एस्टेट हो रहा है. बट आई डू फील कि ये जो कुछ भी हो रहा है मतलब वो ठीक नहीं है. पीपल शुड स्टे अवे, बिकॉज इससे क्या हो रहा है ना कि जो the developers which don't have good reputation, they are also doing the same stuff and कुछ भी बेच रहे हैं लोग. and अभी तो मुझे लगता है कि there are more sellers in the market than buyers. Every day you see new projects coming in. For example, in North India, there's an airport coming up near the Noida, and पता नहीं क्या कर रहे हैं वो लोग, वो हर चीज़ बेचे जा रहे हैं जस्ट टू जस्ट ऑन द पॉइंट कि वहाँ पे एयरपोर्ट आ रहा है. आई डोंट नो क्या हो रहा है, मतलब दिस इज लिटरली आउट ऑफ माई माइंड. हो क्या रहा है मतलब.
Yeah. और वो लेवरेज वाला कितना रिस्की है यार. यू आर फुल्ली डिपेंडेंट ऑन द
Yeah.
डेवलपर. And real estate developers, not to generalize, but they are notoriously known for, not reliable, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
it's a very risky bet.
And one thing, I do feel, Viraj, is कि and एक चीज़ जो मुझे लगती है ना कि the real estate prices, the which are famous, कि बढ़ते हैं, वो रियल एस्टेट प्राइजेस इसलिए बढ़ते हैं क्योंकि देयर इज़ अ ब्लैक मनी एंगल इन्वॉल्व इन दैट. सो पीपल डोंट पे एवरीथिंग वाइट, एंड करप्शन बहुत है, विच इज़ मेकिंग द फ्लैट्स प्राइजेस, द हाउसेस प्राइजेस गोइंग वे एंड बियॉन्ड. Otherwise there's no reason the prices should go like that. And किसी ने एक sting operation किया था. I mean there was a new build, new flat, new society coming up in Noida, and majority of the buyers were some government employees in UP, which were buying the property and just on the launch, and उनकी अगर सैलरी की बात करें, that was even less than 50,000 rupees. So it's all black money parked somewhere. People are buying that and taking leverage of that. This is the harsh reality.
Thanks everyone. It was a really interesting discussion. I honestly believe that 10 करोड़ बनाना उतना डिफिकल्ट नहीं है जितना मैंने सोचा था at the start of this episode. I really believe it. I'm not just saying it. The numbers, the chart that we saw were really mind blowing. I hope our audience found it that useful as well. So in the last few conversations, we started with how to make first 1 crore. We built the foundation by having our net worth as 1 crore, and then in this conversation, we talked about how to go to the next level by making 1 crore by taking 1 crore to 10 crores. In the next conversation, we'll talk about other things. कि ये 10 crore का करना क्या है, right? There is this concept called FIRE, right? Can we retire early with this? People also say कि making 50 crore from 10 crore or 5 million from first million is not that difficult. It's not as difficult as making the first million or making the first 10 crore. So we should touch base upon that as well and see if it's a myth or there is a truth behind it. I'm really looking forward to that discussion, and that will take us from the economic class to business class. See you guys in the next conversation.